Welcome to the Orlando Sentinel editorial board interview with most of the candidates in the Democratic primary for Osceola Sheriff. The winner of this race will be going on to face Republican Donnie Martinez in November. We invited all 5 Democrats. All of you have significant law enforcement experience. As of Tuesday afternoon, Sheriff Marcus Lopez says she cannot join us. So, with us, we have the former Sheriff Russ Gibson, who was in office through 2020 when Lopez took over. Major Wiley Black, who was Lopez's former head of criminal investigation. Amaryllis Rivera, former leader of the Community Services Division, and Luis Tony Fernandez, who ran for sheriff in 2016 and 2020. And as I said, everybody has a lot of experience, so we'll be hearing a lot of interesting ideas, and we look forward to letting each of them talk. I'm going to dive right in with the first question. One of the greatest challenges is recruiting and training officers for both the patrol and criminal investigations divisions as well as the jail. Would you give us your best ideas for recruitment, retention, and training? And let's start with Ms. Rivera.
Hello, ladies first, I guess. So for me, that's my number one priority. I always say that there's no way that I can promise anybody anything if I don't at least have the proper personnel. So when I talk about my platform, that's the first thing I discuss. There's a lot of things and ideas that I have. Really, the biggest issue right now is that we're barely recruiting. So we have about 2 employees that actively go out there and recruit, and they're spread pretty thin. So actually revamping the division and having the proper personnel to go out there and recruit is key. We have an academy here in Osceola County, and they barely even recruit from our academy here in Tico. I also believe that we should be going out of state, not just locally, to recruit people. Right now, their plan, the only place that they're recruiting for out of the state is Puerto Rico, which I don't think is a bad thing. However, most of them are not passing because it's very difficult. In Puerto Rico, they teach you English. However, to be able to read it and write it well, it's not the same. So many of them that come down, they end up not passing FTO because they end up not having that time. I also believe we should be recruiting from military bases throughout the state of Florida, which is another thing that we don't really do. And as far as retention, I think helping fix the morale is huge. And if we fix the morale, I think that a lot of people would be willing to stay.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, same question.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you asked that question. I recently have a meeting with the director for TICO, the local academy, and he presented a very, very good plan how in a year and a half we can recruit and get trained deputies on the roll, 90 deputies in a year and a half. And we talk about a lot of issues, how we can fix it. And that's how I plan to recruit. On retention, it's going to be when you fix the morale, when you treat the deputies with the decency, the respect they deserve, when you treat them like appraise the job. So they're going to be your best recruiter. They're going to tell others, come to work for us. This is a wonderful place to work. It's being lately, go other place. Don't come here. They don't treat you right. They don't treat you with the respect you deserve. They just tell you you're another spot, another person. So using the academy, using people with experience, and treat them, the deputies, like I said, they're gonna be your best recruiter, and then it's gonna trickle down to the citizen. I always say, happy wife, happy life, happy deputies, happy citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mr. Gibson.
In order to have an effective recruiting department, you have to have what the recruits, not just here in Osceola County, but also around the state of Florida, or that's going to come in from Puerto Rico or other states. What are they looking for? We did a very short study. They're looking for a couple basic items. One, a competitive starting pay, and two is a step plan. They want to know when they're starting at this plan, at this pay, how are they going to reach the top out? That's something that I implemented the last year that I was sheriff. We put a 9-year step plan in place that is no longer there. They also want to know that they're going to have protection. I understand that the FOP has been voted in to represent the deputies, the sworn staff. And as of yet, it's been 1.5 years, 2 years. There is no contract in place. And it just goes to show that at this point, the administration is not willing to work with the FOP. And you have to be able to work with the people to make sure that we're providing them what they're looking for in order to come to our agency and also to get them to stay. So we have to have a very fruitful reserve program that we can pull from. And we can do that from recruiting from within by tapping into our 12 high schools where we have graduating seniors to the tune of 3,500 to 5,000 people graduating every single year to bring them into the agency at a young age. Maybe not as a deputy because they're too young, but we're looking at them as future deputies to bring them into the agency, get them started, and as they progress, give them that opportunity to move on to patrol. So that's one of the ideas that I have. Thank you.
First of all, thank you for the invite to come here today. And I think one of the first things we have to do is we have to make the people that are already there feel as though they're wanted and they're needed and that they have a voice, because that's the best recruiter you got, when other people call your own agency and they call the employees and say, how is it to work there? And right now, I don't know if you'd get a great response from that. I think second of all, we got to start recruiting in our own communities. We got to start using and developing our Explorer program a lot bigger, just like ROTC does in high school. And I think that if we advertise that and get our ROTC program, Explorer program running in the schools and inside of our sheriff's office, we'll see a lot more. In other words, grow our own people, grow our own leaders, grow our own employees. And you have to advertise your agency. You have to advertise why come here, not just for the money. You have to advertise, look, we care about our people. Our people are having fun. Our people are getting to where they want to be. And we don't do a lot of that. We do a lot more of advertising for someone instead of for the school, instead of for the agency, and instead of for the employees. I think we underuse social media as far as advertising for our agency. That's how we have to get out there. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll take the next question. In the event of a deputy-involved shooting, who should conduct the investigation and what parameters should be set to ensure the inquiry is fair and thorough? And we'll start with Mr. Gibson.
That's a very good question. And I do agree with the third party doing a fair and impartial investigation. History shows that we've always used the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, commonly referred to as FDLE, and that's perfectly fine. But what we want to do is have that agreement with them, sign the MOS, and let them to continue to do the investigations for the officer-involved shootings. But we want to be an open book as much as we possibly can. So when we have a shooting, we have to make sure that we're getting information that's pertinent, that the people want to know, they want to hear out to them. We live in a society where news is happening on the spot. It's no longer happening today and it's being reported a week later. So we want to make sure that we work with FDLE as a partner and work with them as far as what a press release can be, so we can compare information and come up with a press release that doesn't inhibit their investigation. It doesn't give out intimate information that would hurt their investigation, in other words. So it's just about partnerships and working together and true transparency. And that's what the people want. That's what they need. That is what they deserve. They've grown to expect that from their agency, and we're going to get back to that. So great partnerships, great communication, a great dialogue going back and forth, and not hiding behind a curtain, making it look as if we're trying to hide something or it's something that screams police corruption. So that's what it's important to get the information out right away. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Black, same question.
Absolutely. It has to be a third party. And that has to be agreed upon and known by all parties involved. And make a decision right away. Don't wait several hours to make that decision. If it's an officer involved shooting, we know right away. Everyone knows, from the sheriff all the way down to the deputy that's involved in it, who's going to be investigating that, and get the facts out. Don't be so quick as to getting information out that's not factual. You know, sometimes we're so quick and to try to get information out that's not the exact facts, and we got to go back and recant. But always be open. Always say, hey, we're waiting on to get these facts out. If we can answer the questions, answer the questions. You know, people throw around that word transparency like it's a punchline. You know, transparency, if you look at the dictionary, it's transparent. You either tell them you can tell them or you cannot tell them. And I'm going to be very big right up front. That's why I want my platform is true transparency. And you have to have that relationship. You have to have that relationship with the state attorney. You have to have that relationship with the deputies, with the sergeants, with the captains, everyone. Nothing and everyone has to be treated the same. And those relationships will start from day one when we take office. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez, your view?
Obviously, it has to be a third party, either FDLE or state attorney's office. That's why it's important to have a better relationship with the state attorney's office and other agency. That's why one of my points, one out of my 6 points on my platform, is improve relationship with the state attorney's office. In the past, we know the prior administration is having a match between the sheriff's office and the state attorney's office. So we need to stop that, and we need to have a good relationship, and that's where transparency comes in place. That's why it's important that when they do the investigation, the sheriff's office cooperate with them in every level. Any questions, but they run the show. We don't. They do the investigation. Thank you.
Ms. Rivera, are you there? Okay.
Sorry, my dog's being a little needy today. He's barking at the door.
Okay. So the question is about,
Yes.
You know the question. Okay.
Yes,
go ahead.
ma'am. So I definitely believe that we should have a third party. I think it's extremely important to be transparent about that from the get-go. FDLE should be the one that investigates any officer-involved shootings or any crime involving an officer. And I think that should just be, there should be no gray line. I think it should be black or white. Yes, if an officer is involved, they're going to be the ones investigating it. And one of the things that I want to do is I want to start a liaison unit between the sheriff's office and the state attorney's office to have better communication, because it just seems that a lot of the issues that we have is for lack of communication in some areas. So that's one of the things that I'm very big on that I would like to create. But absolutely, a third party should always be involved, and they should always be the ones investigating it. We should never be investigating ourselves.
Thank you. I'm going to follow up with a question about the relationship with the state attorney. So we know that there's been a sort of a fraught relationship with the sheriff and state attorney, former state attorney Monique Worrell, who has been accused her of a significant dereliction of duty by way of Governor Ron DeSantis. Do you believe the charges leveled against Ms. Worrell at the sheriff's initial press conference was accurate and fair? Why or why not? Why don't we start with Mr. Fernandez?
I don't know the facts. I don't know what's the criteria the governor used to remove her. All I know, when you're elected by the people. And the people should judge you like every 4 years if you did it wrong, and they should vote you out. However, I believe if you commit a crime or something immoral, something that bring disgrace to the agency, the governor, he could remove the person from the office. But I cannot make comment that was the right move or not, because I don't know all the details or the facts that led him to make that decision. But that's why it's important that the sheriff's office needs to get those relationships established and work together as a one. Thank you.
Ms. Rivera?
So one of the biggest reasons that I do want to start that division is because of lack of communication. I think we've had a lot of issues with the previous state attorneys, such as Ayala and then Worrell. And I actually met up with Worrell because I was one of those people that was like, man, she's not prosecuting enough. We saw the same people constantly coming in, and it was a revolving door with the recidivism. However, I also knew that there was a lot of issues that we had internally as far as report writing. Do we have the proper PC? It seems like we're training people and we have babies training babies, and a lot of the stuff wasn't being done correctly. And that was one of the reasons why a lot of charges were also being dropped. So I met up with her because I wanted to see from her perspective. And she told me, Amaryllis, several times she attempted to contact Lopez and have a meeting one-on-one. Never did he even meet with her. Same as Ayala, apparently never had spoken to Gibson. And I think that just having that open dialogue is important, because if we can't sit down and agree to disagree on certain things, we're never going to get past a lot of these issues. I don't know enough of the facts to know exactly, yes, he did it correctly, DeSantis, or didn't. However, I do think that certain things were unfair. We couldn't place all of the blame on her. With certain things. For example, the arraignment judge was the one who decided to let him go because he was entitled to a bond. So if someone is entitled to a bond, unless we have someone there that is stating, listen, this person needs to stay in jail because they're a danger to society, then how are they supposed to know that he should stay in jail? So that's why I think having a liaison unit would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Black, what is your perspective?
I'd have to agree that I don't know enough of the details about that decision that was made. That's out of my wheelhouse. But I can tell you that being the head of a criminal investigations division, I got firsthand of how the relationship between the sheriff and state attorney was very toxic. From what I seen and what I could hear, I had issues with not the state attorney themselves, but several state attorneys undermining our detectives, calling our legal counsel, and making decisions about things that our detectives knew nothing about. And that didn't sit very well with me. And I've had several conversations with the state attorneys up there, and even the current state attorney now. I'm sorry, with Ryan Williams when I was there about that, and that seemed to get corrected. But I can't judge whether or not that was fairly or not. Again, they kept those reasons very tight lipped up there. Wasn't a part of that. But I can tell you the relationship between our attorney's office and the sheriff and the state attorney's office was toxic. And who paid for that? The state attorney invested, all the state attorneys, assistant state attorneys, they paid for it. Our victims paid for it. The sheriff's office detectives paid for it. I think it's imperative that the sheriff's office, that the sheriff is the main liaison. I agree with Amaryllis about having someone else, but the sheriff has to be the main liaison with the sheriff, with the state attorney. They have to come to some type of agreement. They have to have a great relationship in order for anything to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Gibson.
Well, with the state attorney's office, the sheriff's, we should have an ally there, and we should work very hard to have that ally, not an adversary. And we've had that in the past. There was communication at one point between former state attorney Aramis Ayala and myself. And then when the answer was no, I'm not going to prosecute the case, I just simply didn't take no for an answer. So don't go astray there. We had to fight that fight to make sure that there was justice for the Montalvo family, and that's what I did. But in the case of Monique Worrell, I will tell you that the governor should not have removed her from office based on what I have seen and what the public has seen. Her responses to the accusations that were made were very on point. And that, I believe, was a case for the voters to decide in this up and coming election, and not for a governor to, from what my viewpoint was, to use as a political chess piece for his bid for president of the United States. That's shameful, and it should have never been done. So that is up to the voters. If she has done her job adequately or not done her job adequately, that's for the voters to decide, not for our governor. That's my opinion based on what I've seen. With Miss Ayala refusing to go after the death penalty in any case that would require it, or that it would be on the table at least, I felt those were grounds for her to be removed from office, and the governor did not remove her. They let her stay. And Miss Worrell was a lot less than that, even if those accusations were true and they didn't do anything, but they did remove her, and I think wrongfully so.
All right. I have the next question. I will wanted to ask, what, if anything, would you change about the way the sheriff's office handles individuals who are obviously mentally ill or in crisis? And what changes would you make at the jail for this population? And let us start. Sorry, let's start with Mr. Black.
First of all, training for sure. Right now, some of the training we do, the crisis intervention training, is required. They want everybody to go through this training. But while I was there, after you completed that training, there wasn't much follow-up training whatsoever. It was almost like a check-the-box type of training. And that's one of the issues that on my platform that I want to do better at. We started a peer counseling there for sure. And the young lady that was there that started that, I think it was working well for a while. And everyone has to buy into that from the top down. If they see that the sheriff or the administration is not buying into this type of training and not attending the training themselves and not exhibiting that themselves, why should anyone else buy into it? And that's going to change. And I hope whoever gets elected there really takes that to heed and make sure that they lead by example. I definitely want to increase the relationships with the corrections. I've spoke to them. I've spoke to the union over there and to several high members at the corrections about this, about coming together. We used to have meetings with the corrections over there about these things. And since I bet we haven't had one in 3 years that I'm aware of in there, but that's a very hot topic, and it's going to be high on our priority list for sure to change the way that's handled and treated. Because if you go to a suicidal subject in a house by himself, you treat that differently than you go to a suicidal subject that's in a supermarket full of people. And you have to understand that by experience and training for sure. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Mr. Gibson, let's go to you next.
Well, thank you. Mental health is something that we are all facing every single day. And they're not just in hospitals anymore. We know that the state hospitals, many of them closed, and those folks are out amongst us. They're living with their families. They're living in hotels. They're living in the woods. And, to be mentally ill is not a crime, but we have to have a solution. And I think having that solution is an open dialogue with our 501c3s. We need to tap into the resources that are around us. And we need to also absolutely work with corrections. Those are our brothers and sisters. They're under the umbrella of law enforcement, and they're basically holding some of these folks that the state, many times when they commit a frivolous crime, the state doesn't have anywhere to put these folks. I am a believer and also a person who supports mental health courts. I've done that not only as the sheriff, but also as a deputy working in the courtrooms. I've seen how that works and how it has a positive effect on some of these folks. So we want to basically use every avenue that we can. The CIT training is very important, but we have to have annual training every single year when we do our annual training. And we can get this done by partnerships with our congressmen and women, our state representatives and our state senator to bring monies from Tallahassee and monies from Washington to help offset the cost for ongoing mental health training for all of our deputies, support staff, communications, and so forth. So, and we have to do that. We can't just talk about it. We have to be about it.
Thank you. Ms. Rivera, same question.
So definitely, we have to talk about it and not be about it. And we haven't really, in the 17 years that I've been there, I don't think we've ever really focused much on mental health, ever. And for example, CIT training started when Hansel was in office. It is an amazing, amazing training. I have to say that is by far one of the best trainings that I've ever attended at the sheriff's office. but we have nothing that is annual to kind of refresh, because you can go to a training and it's a 40-hour class, which is why so many people aren't attending it as much anymore, because we're so short staffed that we can't afford to let somebody leave for 40 hours. But we need some refreshers because things are constantly changing and evolving. The biggest thing too is there's so much focus on how we handle mental health, but we don't take care of our own. We need to focus on the deputies' mental health, because if we focus on their mental health, then I think that they can provide better services. We had somebody hired under Lopez that was supposed to be there for the deputies, and I think that her intention, and she's great at what she did, but they didn't utilize her the way that they should have. For example, her office was right next to the major's and the captain's office. If you're having a mental health breakdown, do you really want to go and talk to somebody in mental health that's right next to the captain or the major's office? It absolutely made no sense. And we just don't have enough training. When certain incidents happen, we don't have enough debriefings. I attended firsthand one of the worst incidents that I ever was at was one of our deputies committed suicide. And I went just to help as a sergeant and say, hey, what do you need help with? And they told me, can you please go inside and see who has to be relieved? And every deputy in there except for one was crying. And I was never involved in a debrief. So it's important to make our mental health a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you. CIT class, when I become sheriff, I would make that class mandatory, because right now it's whoever wants it. But that's a class that should be mandatory for all deputies. And there will be also like a verbal judo follow up to it. The deputies need to learn how to escalate the situation. They need to learn how to approach citizens with mental health, because if they're not trained, they see somebody breaking a car, breaking glasses, oh, that's a criminal. About with that's somebody we have a mental issues. It's a big difference. And also, like Amaryllis says, we need to take care of our own first. In 15 years, I never see anybody worry about deputies and mental health, because it's a tradition, it's a culture that we as a law enforcement, we don't break. Only the military people got PTSD. How about the law enforcement? We got constant battle every day on the street. Every day we go out to serve is a battle. It's a war zone. So we need to gain the trust back from our deputies, knowing the administration is out for them. So it's okay to ask for mental health, and we provide those help instead of punish them or suspend them. Thank you.
Okay. I know that almost all patrol officers and many investigative staff are now equipped with body cameras. But not everybody is required to use them. Would you require all deputies to wear body cams while on duty and equip all vehicles with cameras as well? What, and if the answer to that is yes, or actually if the answer is no, what, if any, discipline should a deputy face for failing to wear or turn on their cameras? And let's start with Ms. Rivera.
So yes, I do believe that just about everybody should have cameras. But however, there are certain units that don't have a vest on them. They work undercover and they don't have the vest on them. They only put it on last minute if something is escalating to where they need to wear their vest, which is kind of what happened at Target, which is why a lot of people are thinking like, oh, well, why didn't they have cameras? What people don't understand is also the back end of the cameras. So this is something that you have to charge every day, that you have to make sure that you're placing it on your vest. They have to have a special type of vest. And it's very difficult for certain units that are working undercover to have those on at all times. And it's kind of unrealistic to think that someone who's working undercover has to have a body cam on at all times. I do think that patrol should definitely have cameras on at all times. We are the only agency in Central Florida that is allowed to turn them off completely. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed. And, you know, there has to be some type of discipline in order to be able to let everybody know, hey, they need to be on at all times, because I know oftentimes they just get turned off and they're like, oh, well, it wasn't anything. I didn't think that it was going to be a crime, so I decided to just turn it off. But then if something happens after you turn it off, that's where the issue comes in. And I think it's important to make sure that we relay that message to them. The training when you get the body cam is very minimal. And there's a lot of confusion, whether it's on, whether it's off, if your taser turns on while you have it on. Let's say you have it off and you go use the restroom and somebody in the room next door is testing their taser, their camera can turn off. So there's a lot of things that they need to understand and train better on. So that way they know that it's black and white. You have to have it on when you're supposed to.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson, same question.
I am a big proponent of the body camera. I was the first sheriff to implement the body cameras and bring it into our agency. I worked hand in hand with Congressman Soto in order to receive a federal funding to help offset the cost of that. Right at the tune of $400,000 came into the agency to purchase the first set of cameras that we issued. Every uniformed deputy, school resource officer, a patrol deputy working in the courtrooms should have a camera on and functioning as a part of their normal duty gear. Same with tactical units. When these folks are putting on a vest and they're a tactical team, they should have a camera attached to their vest. Hindsight being 2020, that would have been a great thing for the target shooting, but that didn't happen. And so that's where we're at. But if you're not a person who's using that equipment properly, then there has to be accountability. And it's called progressive discipline. You know, the first offense could be something where you bring them in and give them a verbal counseling session. Another offense could result in a written reprimand, moving up to suspensions, and if it continued up to and including termination. Every policy at the sheriff's office has that written into it. And I haven't seen the policy for the body cameras per se as of late, but I assume that that's there as well. Technology has to come into play here. We're going to use technology to operate those cameras to get them started. If you receive a call and you're responding to a call, that camera should initiate right then and there without even having to turn it on or turn it off. It should be, you know, compatible with the computer system that we have, the software. And we're going to make sure that that's implemented and done. That's out there. We just need to introduce it to the sheriff's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you. I believe everyone should wear a body camera. I will lead by example. Why the sheriff, if the deputies mirror the sheriff, why the sheriff doesn't wear body cams? The command staff. Everybody should wear a body cam. And there's some exceptions, like undercover job or anything that you can wear that. And about the punishment, that got to be case by case, because a lot of things can happen with the technology. Could be malfunction, could be split-second decisions. The deputy has to react. So we have to evaluate every case individually. But obviously we have to establish a guideline, a policy based on what's the punishment, based on the circumstances. But it's very irresponsible to dictate what kind of punishment you're gonna give to the deputies if that happens, if you don't know the whole fact. That's why we got to do investigation to realize and make a determination what's going to be a punishment, if anything. Thank you.
Mr. Black.
Absolutely. And one of my platforms I'm running on is true transparency. So I can tell you when many years ago, when they started talking about body cameras, I wasn't a big proponent of them at first. And I didn't think we needed them. But I can tell you, since they've come out, I've completely changed my mind, because they have really done law enforcement a great job. It helps in training. It gives the public a voice itself, and it gives us a good idea of what actually is going on out there if we haven't been on the street in a while. I do believe that everyone that comes into contact with the citizens that on their normal duty should wear body cams. Court deputies, I would have to look at that, because will we have their body cam on? If they're in the court for 8 hours a day, would their camera be running 8 hours, even though there's cameras inside the courtroom? I don't know. There's a cost factor in that. So I would definitely want to look at that for sure. I'm not, I'd have to look at about admin wearing body cameras. I'm not really sold on that. I'm not saying we won't do it. I just don't know of many other agencies that do use that. All the tactical deputies should be wearing body cameras. We talk about it. They plan it before the action is taken, so they should have enough time to put their vest on and get everything taken care of there. As far as discipline goes, I don't think you can carte blanche say everyone gets this. I think each incident on what happened has to be investigated and the proper discipline issued then if it was an accident. I know some deputies, some agencies leave them on all the time, and some of them turn them off. That's definitely something we're going to look at there, because there are issues when they get turned off for sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And actually, that kind of leads into my next question, which is, you've all talked about different agencies or different policies. Working around Central Florida, could each of you identify one or two sheriffs whom you admire, and what ideas you'd borrow or steal from them? And let's start with Mr. Black.
Current or past sheriffs? I can tell you by far, I've worked for myself. I've worked for a lot of good sheriffs. One great sheriff, in my opinion, and some not so great, but Sheriff Hansel by far has been the greatest sheriff that I have worked for. He had the unique ability of bringing everyone together. He had a unique ability, and I know the public probably didn't care much about this, but it does affect the public, of bringing the sheriff's office together as one big happy family. He had a way of getting everyone that didn't get along with each other somehow or another finding mutual ground. And he knew everything that happened at the sheriff's office, and he just had a way of getting together, and he took care of his people. You know, and I believe, and my numbers may be wrong, I think we got the least amount of raises under Sheriff Hansel, but I think we lost the least amount of people under Sheriff Hansel. I hope no one mistakes my silence and kindness for weakness. I'm really tough on crime, Grady Judge, tough on crime, Chipwood, Ivy, all those people, but they came up through the ranks. They chewed the mud. They dug the ditches. And they've been a part of that. They know what it's like. And I know each sheriff is different. And I know that I'm going to be different, just like if any of these other candidates are going to be elected, they're going to be their own self, their own sheriff. But I would hope they would take what's worked well in the past. They've studied great sheriffs and great leaders, and they take that and then they build on it, and they make it better. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Fernandez, same question.
Well, the only sheriff that I knew that I worked with it for almost 15 years was Sheriff Hansel, and he's a great inspiration. He's a great leader to follow. But I'm inspired to be the best sheriff ever. I'm inspired to make history by make our sheriff's office an office that everybody want to mirror. Everybody want to be like us. So I would get together with other sheriffs. I would meet them, and I would take the good out of each one. But I want to be like Tony Fernandez. That's my real inspiration to be. But the one I learned and I see a lot was Sheriff Hansel. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rivera.
So, first person that I would like to say that, because I think she totally broke some barriers, is Susan Benton. She was the first female elected sheriff in Florida. And I just think that she really set a good example. She was very respected, and she was sheriff for many, many years. However, I do not know her on that personal level. I just like the fact that she broke a lot of barriers. And even though she was the first female, she was very well respected. The second person, which is my main person, and he's one of my, definitely somebody that I have always looked up to. And it's very difficult for people to fill in his shoes, and people talk about him a lot, but it's Hansel. One thing about Hansel is that he just genuinely cared about people. He was not a politician, and he didn't only start to serve the community when he was running for a position. I've always been involved, and everybody here that worked with me at the sheriff's office can vouch that I was one of the most involved people in the community. Before we even had a community services division, a lot of us did a lot of things on our own personal time for the sheriff's office, and I was one of those people. And the sheriff was at every single event. He did not have a camera there following him around. He was not there to take pictures and then leave. He actually went to these events. He engaged with the people. He remembered people's names. He cared about the deputies. And I feel that since he has left, there has been a lot of people that care more about politics than people. And for me, I just want to be the best version of myself. And I just want to continue to serve people in the community and the deputies as well. I think we need to bring that family aspect back. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Gibson, as a former sheriff, I'm sure you have an opinion on that.
Yes, ma'am. You know, there are so many, well, there's 66 other sheriffs in the state of Florida. And if I understood the question, we're talking about surrounding counties or some other sheriffs in the state of Florida that you might, you know, make a difference with. And I can tell you, Sheriff Mina, right next door to Orange County, with his, it's okay to not be okay to his folks, and the policies and procedures that he has there. His management of crisis situations has been unparalleled. From when he was the OPD chief with the shooting at the Pulse, this is a person that you can really tap into and really have a lot of knowledge of what's going on in today's world. And also Dennis Lima up in Seminole County with what he's doing with the opioid addiction and what he's using, the monies that he's receiving for the opioid epidemic, investing in local 501c3s, having beds for these folks to go to an actual place for them to stay at and get the services that they need, those wraparound services to be a contributing member of our society. I mean, that's what we're looking for here in today's times. You know, leave the past right where it is. And let's look at what's happening in today's world. It's a different time in 2024. And then also Sheriff Bob White, who retired from Pasco County several years ago. This is a man who still travels the state of Florida, the country, making a difference with the sheriffs and their personnel. He's just an amazing mentor, and it's a person that I can reach out to anytime that I have questions or concerns, and I have his 100% trust. You don't find that everywhere, and I'm so grateful to have that at my fingertips. Thank you.
Okay, I believe I have the last question. So what changes, if any, would you make in the sheriff's office public records policy and public information operation? The Sentinel, for instance, has had ongoing difficulties in obtaining public records on a timely basis. So we're particularly interested in what your policies might be and changes. Why don't we start with Ms. Rivera?
I mean, I think it's funny that I would be picked to be the person to answer this question first, but I have requested and I have paid close to $900 in public records requests since leaving the agency in August, and most of them have not been filled. They're pretty much only choosing which ones they want to fill or not. The law states that it needs to be filled in a timely manner. However, a timely manner can be, 30 days, 90 days, 2 years, 5 years. It doesn't state exactly how much time. My issue is that only certain things are being filled. So for example, I requested my employee record, the sheriff's employee records, everybody's employee records that's running for sheriff. And only mine was returned and not anybody else's. So I just think that, when someone asks for something, if we're truly being transparent, it should not matter what's being asked of. It should be done in chronological order instead of filling what you feel you need to do. So if I requested 20 things, I should not be getting what I requested last, now, but something that I requested 8 months ago, I still haven't gotten. I think it just speaks to true transparency. And I think that's something that people should see and recognize. I know I reported it to the Department of Justice, and I don't know what's being done. I know it's not an issue that only I have had. It's an issue that many media outlets have had. And I think that they need to be held accountable. It's the law that we should be able to have and request public records. So if it's not being done, then what is being done about it? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gibson?
I have experienced the same thing, asking for information from the sheriff's office here and there. And the sheriff's office telling me that what I'm asking for, such as the sheriff's budget, that doesn't exist. It's laughable. We create booklets every single year, individual booklets for our county commissioners that I myself have sat down with all 5 county commissioners one at a time and went over the budget with them, answering questions that they may have or be concerned with. Transparency is something that isn't taken lightly. It's not taken for granted, but it is something that we as a group of people who are taking ad valorem taxes, we have to be able to be so transparent that the light can shine through. And that's anything that's not happening at the sheriff's office. And it hasn't for the past almost 4 years. It's very frustrating. As Orlando Sentinel ask for different things, or if it's channel 6, 35, 9, or 2, or 13, if it's not an active investigation, that the information is going to hinder that investigation, it should be released to whoever is asking for it. Joe Blow citizen can ask for something with an assumed name, and that information must go out to them in a timely fashion. That is the law. The only thing that this administration truly understands is when you actually hire an attorney, sadly, and file a lawsuit against these folks, and that's when you'll get a response from them. You don't need that from your sheriff. You don't want that from your sheriff. When your sheriff speaks, you want to know that you're being told the truth and that you're not potentially being lied to. So give the information out and hold people accountable if they're dropping the ball. Thank you. And there's so much more to talk about that, but thank you for the time.
Thank you. Mr. Black?
I don't think the 2 minutes is long enough to talk about that for sure. I can tell you that I will have a relationship with you guys. My staff will have a relationship with you guys. We will have someone with all news outlets. Again, that's one of the biggest things I'm running on is transparency, true transparency. I've worked many of high profile cases, a lot of homicide cases, in some cases that we can't release the information right away, but I want to be able to tell you that, hey, we can't release it because of this. I don't need an attorney to, I guess, keep rolling it over and over and over again. It's very simple. I can answer it or I can't answer it. And I've experienced that a little bit myself. And I think everyone has, but I've also gone on longer than 4 years. It happens, but I think when there's a loophole there where it says in a timely fashion, people use that in a different way. One of the things I hope to do, I don't want to promise to do it, but I hope to review that and then have a timeline in policy that we will have these public records requests by this time, 72 hours, longer than that. That's one of the goals I hope to do, to have that in policy. And that way there won't be any questions about it, why it's not being released. But keep it in mind, there's some cases out there we can't release this stuff right away. And we have to wait, but we'll have someone there to be able to tell you that. We won't run, we won't hide from the truth. And I don't think any sheriff should do that, or any leader as far as that goes in any division. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, round it up.
Thank you. Well, as a sheriff, we're law enforcement, right? So we're gonna enforce the law. There is a law that dictates how the public record should be issued to the public. So we just follow that law. And I lead by example. My agency will lead by example. So according with the law, that's how we're gonna proceed to any public request. When is whoever requested, boom, there's no reason for delay. Again, the law dictates how the current sheriff is being accused because violation of public request. Therefore, there's a law that says what can you or cannot submit. So it's not complicated. It's not much to say because we just go round and round. But under my administration, yes, there will be no problem with a public request according to the law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have come so fast to the time that we promised we'd get y'all done by. And in a minute, I am going to ask you to make a closing statement and your pitch for why voters should choose you. But first, I wanted to talk to our readers and say we will be making an endorsement in this race. However, as always, we ask that you not make that your determining factor. All of these candidates have websites, vibrant social media presences. They are attending forums. They are out in the community. You also have friends and neighbors who are almost certainly interested in this race. It is the top race in Osceola County. So do a little more digging and look at each of these candidates and ask yourself who best fits my idea of how the sheriff in Osceola County should conduct business and keep us safe. And this race will be on the August 20th ballot. But in addition to that, the winner of this race will go forward to face a Republican in November. So be prepared for that. But with that said, I would like to invite Mr. Fernandez to start us off with the closing statements. And I did use a random generator to get my list of who went first and second and third and fourth.
Thank you. Well, like I said, my name is Luis Tony Fernandez, born and raised in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. I was a law enforcement in Puerto Rico PD. I worked task force with the feds, FBI, DEA, fighting corruptions. And I worked for almost 15 years in Osceola County as a deputy sheriff. And so I got a lot of experience. I used to own businesses, to run businesses as well. I was a director of private detective company, and currently work for the Inspector General's office for the Department of Corrections. I'm a detective inspector. We just changed the name recently, which I'm investigating corruptions and fighting high crimes. So what people should vote for Tony Fernandez? I'm the only candidate that's gonna bring the real changes to Osceola County. Why? Because I'm not committed to any part of the good old boy system. I don't owe anything to nobody. I owe to the citizens. I owe to my deputies. I'm the only candidate that's going to bring the real change and change the culture of the law enforcement. We cannot keep repeating the pattern that we've been working the law enforcement. We need to know the deputies need counseling. They get mental health issues as well, and we need to transpire that to the citizens. That's why we assume everything my 6 point, which is justice, unification, problem solving, transparency, improving relationship with the citizen's office, and proper authority. So August 20th, starting today, vote Tony Fernandez for real change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Rivera, you're up next.
1 minute is not enough. 2. Oh, okay, perfect. So it's no surprise, I'm the first Latina running for this position. But I tell people all the time, don't make that the deciding factor on why you vote for me. I think that it's important to look at people's qualifications. We all have our own unique experiences, every single one of us, and we all have things that we bring to the table. However, who thinks more differently than a female compared to what a man thinks like? So I think that, when we talk about true change, I'm probably going to be the most different of all the candidates. I'm definitely not part of the good old boy system, being that I'm a female, but I think it's important for people to get to know each candidate. Don't just vote off of name recognition. Experience is important. However, you can have all the experience in the world and still not be a great leader. So look at each person. And as far as why you should, vote for me, I've always, not just now because I'm running for this position, everybody that is even sitting here can vouch that I have been the most involved in the community. I love to give back to the community. I am a true servant leader. And for me, it's not just about helping the agency. It's also about building that trust and relationship with the community again, which I think we have lost for a really long time. So I may lack some experience. Some people talk about me not being sworn. That's one thing that's unique about me. So I did work on patrol. However, I was in a non-sworn position. And I did that for 17 years. So the great thing is that I have the experience both in the civilian side and the sworn side, because I know what they do. So I'm kind of the closest thing to a deputy that's out there on patrol. I also have a degree in criminal justice administration, and I have the most military experience of any candidate. So I served in the military for close to 16 years. And so whatever I feel that I do lack on the law enforcement side, I gain through my military experience. And vote for me, August 20th. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Mr. Black.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you very much. And again, my name is Wiley Black. I'm a long-term resident of Osceola County, nearly 55 years. I'm a business owner. I'm invested in Osceola County. All of my kids have graduated from Harmony High School, all 4 of them. And all my grandkids are going to Osceola County schools as well. 2 of my daughters own businesses in Osceola County as well. I have family members. My son works for the Osceola County Sheriff's Office. He's invested. And I have other family members that are invested in the Osceola County Sheriff's Office itself. I am a military veteran. And after I come out of the military, I only wanted to work at one agency, and that's the Osceola County Sheriff's Office. I applied there, and I've worked there ever since, and up until I left in November of last year, and in one form or capacity or other, I served the sheriff's office. I've been in just about every unit. I rose up to the rank of major. I was a SWAT team for probably 25 plus years, rose up from the beginning all the way up to the SWAT commander, all the way up to the high risk incident commander that commanded the ERT unit, the hostage negotiators, and SWAT. I've been in a homicide unit as a supervisor, a K9 unit, first sergeant of aviation. I helped start our own DNA lab in our forensics unit. I understand administrations. I understand the budget. But most of all, I understand that I need to, and I will, and I have for 32 plus years served the citizens of Osceola County. Not a certain group, everyone. I treat everyone the same. I am very hard on crime, but I also have empathy, and I also have wisdom. And that comes from time on the job. I hear a lot about the good old boy system, you know, and everybody has different definitions of what that means. A lot of things, if it's not broke, don't fix it, but always add on to it. We all talk most of us talk a lot about Sheriff Ansel. I want to be Wiley Black, but I know what worked best for Osceola County, and I want to build on that. And there's a lot of other sheriffs out there that are currently now that I will have a great relationship. And last, I want to leave you with this, that I know how important it is about relationships. Without that, you're nothing. You have to have a relationship with all the community leaders. Thank you very much. Go to wiley.vote and find out more information about me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Gibson, will you wrap us up, please?
Thank you so much. And thank the panel for having us all here today. And it means a great deal to each and every one of us. As you said, I'm Russ Gibson. I'm the former Osceola County Sheriff, and I have 32 years experience plus at the agency, the last 4 of which I was the sheriff. I'm also a small business owner here in Osceola County. Even though I was born and raised in Youngstown, Ohio, this isn't my hometown, but it is all 3 of my children's hometown. So, you know, the Gibson family is vested here. You know, win, lose, or draw, this is my county. And I'm going to continue serving the people of Osceola County, just as I have done since I have been here since 1986. You know, while serving as your sheriff, crime rate was reduced 30.6%. Those numbers are for everyone to see at FDLE. They're not made up. They're not trumped up. And it wasn't because of a COVID situation that we had. But those are real numbers. And they're, again, there for everyone to see, to, you know, see what's going on. Our population rose during that same time period more than 23%. And we still continue to be one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Florida. And we rival any county in the United States. So we have to grow with the population that's coming in. And I have that ability to do that. You know, as sheriff, I also fought some hard fights. I fought for justice for the Nicole Montalvo family to make sure that there was justice for that family. When our prosecutor at the time turned her back on that case for whatever reason, it's not important now. I did not take no for an answer, and I went to bat for the Montalvo family. And I'm telling you guys, if that should ever happen with any one of you that's listening, you know that I'm going to go to bat for you as well. My heart is to serve, and I have never strayed away from that. I've always taken the agency in a forward motion. I don't look at the past and revel in it. We learn from the past, we respect the past, but we have to have a plan for the future. As of today, moving up to the 20th of August, vote for Russ Gibson in the primary. If you have questions, call me at 321-746-7036 or russforsheriff.com. I will meet with you personally. Thank you for your time and for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.